Joe Rogan recently stopped mid-conversation to read a name on his screen, DiDio. He stumbled over the spelling, then read the headline out loud. After sitting in a private meeting with pastors connected to these investigations, the message was clear: UFO and UAP disclosure is coming. Pastors must prepare their people now. Silence is not an option. Rogan's response was one question: what does that mean? What are they preparing people for? It's the right question, and the fact that it's now being asked on the largest secular podcast on the planet tells you exactly where we are in this story. DiDio was in that room in Tennessee. He was one of roughly 6 to 12 people seated in an Airbnb on a dark street, phones on airplane mode, listening to a multi-hour briefing from government-adjacent insiders who love the Lord and are terrified the church is unprepared for what is coming. He wasn't surprised by what he heard. He'd been studying this for 5 years. What surprised him was how fast it was all moving and how little the average believer has any framework to respond. Let's set the record straight on what the Tennessee meeting was, because the narrative that went viral was significantly wrong on several key points. The briefers were not government officials. They were believers, people with backgrounds in classified programs and intelligence communities. They had come across information that concerned them deeply and who trusted a small circle of Christian leaders enough to share it privately. The meeting was called secret only because the briefers asked to remain anonymous. The content itself was never classified. Everyone was free to talk about it. What they presented over 2.5 to 3 hours of slides was this: disclosure is not coming eventually. It is coming in stages, it has already started, and it will accelerate. The church needs to be ahead of it, not reacting to it, because the narrative being built around it is specifically designed to undermine the gospel. And DiDio's response? He pushed back. He asked hard questions. He wanted to know how he could be sure this wasn't a setup, a coordinated attempt to manipulate leaders. His questions were answered satisfactorily, but his skepticism is part of why his account carries weight. One of the most significant things DiDio walked away believing, and has since watched confirmed in real time, is that what we are seeing is not organic. It is orchestrated. Consider the sequence. An Age of Disclosure documentary drops in November. L.A. Marzulli convenes a conference in January specifically to respond to it. In February, the Tennessee meetings. The day after, Trump announces declassifying UFO files. Perry Stone's video goes viral. Joe Rogan picks up DiDio's name. Kash Patel announces the document dump. A Spielberg film called Disclosure scheduled for June, 1 month before July 8th, the anniversary of Roswell. DiDio's assessment: this is a full-court press, and it has to be organized. The probability of this sequence being random is essentially zero. The only question is what the end goal is. The answer is a new global enlightenment narrative in which Christianity is positioned as the obstacle. That is not a fringe theory. It is the stated framing of the disclosure agenda as DiDio understands it from intelligence and independent research. DiDio is direct about what he believes is coming. The enemy moves inch by inch, establishing plausibility. The first move is normalization. Yes, there are unexplained objects. Yes, the government has been tracking them. Yes, some of them are real. That phase is already well underway. The second move is reframing. These intelligences are ancient. They have been here before. They have a relationship to human history and religion. That phase is beginning. The third move, the one being actively prepared, is theological displacement. The Bible is almost right, but incomplete, and these beings are here to offer the final piece. DiDio connects this directly to Project Blue Beam, a theory from the 1990s describing a staged global event designed to produce a one-world religion. Whether or not every detail is accurate, the structural logic maps precisely onto what the briefers presented, a multi-decade conditioning of the population. The tell, DiDio says, will not be an attack on Christianity. It will be an embrace of it, almost. A narrative that says the Bible is mostly true, Jesus was real. But here is the part that was missing. Here is what these intelligences can clarify. That is more dangerous because it will fool people who think they are being discerning. DiDio has a single question he applies to every entity, every disclosure claim, every supernatural encounter, and it cuts through the complexity immediately. Not, do they seem friendly? Not, is the technology impressive? Not, does the message sound reasonable? The one question, what is their position on Jesus Christ? That he came in the flesh, that he is fully God and fully man, that salvation exists through him alone? DiDio connects this to 1 John and to Deuteronomy 13. Deuteronomy 18 warns about prophets whose words don't come to pass. But Deuteronomy 13 makes a more disturbing claim. A prophet whose word does come to pass whose miracles happen exactly as predicted, can still be a false prophet if the message leads away from God. The test is not accuracy, the test is the message. This is why DiDio is thoroughly unimpressed by anything the enemy does. He has seen orbs, he has been present for things he cannot explain, he is not moved. Not because he denies the supernatural reality, he's a credible voice on it, but because he knows impressive signs are not the standard. The Word of God is the standard. The Prophecy Watcher's interview surfaces something important. DiDio has written on the Rapture, specifically on the ways the church has been misled about it. In the context of disclosure, that book becomes directly relevant. The briefers identified the catching away as the specific event the disclosure narrative is prepositioned to explain. When it happens, the story will be ready. A church that has been taught a distorted version of the rapture will have no counter-narrative to reach for in that moment. DiDio's book addresses exactly this gap, not as a curiosity, but as urgent practical theology. The lies told about the rapture leave the church defenseless. 5 years of research, decades of ministry, a private briefing from insiders, and a book written before any of this went viral. That is the body of work Alan DiDio brings. The disclosure era is not arriving. It is here. The government files are being released, the Spielberg film is coming, the insiders briefed that room because they believe the window is closing. Alan DiDio was in that room. He asked hard questions and came away convinced the church needs exactly what the Word provides and that the specific threats require specific preparation. His book is that preparation made practical. Theology tested against supernatural reality. The question is not whether these things are coming. The question is whether you will be ready. Alan DiDio's book is available now. The link is in the description. If you want a spiritual framework for the disclosure story, subscribe and stay with us.